Imagine a place where geography has decided that human life is impossible. No rivers, no rain, just sand, heat and salt. By all the laws of nature, Israel should be a wasteland, a graveyard of failed civilizations. But what you see here defies reality. Instead of droughts and rationing, they have an abundance of water that stunned the global scientific community. They didn't discover this resource, they manufactured it. Israel pulled off the ultimate act of defiance against the planet. They built an artificial ocean in the middle of the desert. They turned off their dependence on rainfall and turned on the greatest survival machine ever built. How did they crack nature's code to turn saltwater into life, while the rest of the world is drying up? The answer starts now. To grasp the sheer madness of this project, you have to forget human scale. Nothing here was designed for human hands or eyes. Everything was built to tame monsters. Israel's first line of defense against extinction isn't a wall, it's a reinforced concrete artery buried deep on the seabed. These intake pipelines have diameters so massive you could drive a school bus through them without scraping the mirrors. They don't just sip the sea, they devour it. We're talking millions of tons of water ripped from the ocean every hour. And the ocean, like any wild beast, fights back against being captured. Once inside the plant, the water meets its first enemy, gravity and friction. To push this liquid mass through the system, Israel uses centrifugal pumps that, on their own, consume the energy of a small city. When you rest your hand on the metal railing in that room, you feel the vibration in your bones. It's the heartbeat of a machine battling raw physics. The risk here is catastrophic. The pressure in these primary pipes is enough to decapitate a person if there's even a tiny crack in the steel. The engineering has to cage the fury of the sea inside a metal prison. But brute force is the easy part. Moving the water is straightforward. The real nightmare, the problem that humiliated scientists for decades, comes next. Seawater is a biological and chemical soup. It's loaded with algae, bacteria, sludge, and worst of all, salt. And salt is a microscopic enemy that can't be beaten with concrete or steel. To defeat it, the plant stops being civil engineering and becomes a sci-fi laboratory. Welcome to the heart of the anomaly. If the pump room was the muscle, this is the brain. And here, physical megaphobia gives way to quantum precision. The challenge is this: how do you remove salt from water? You can't filter it out because it's chemically dissolved. You can't boil it because that would burn through the energy of the entire Middle East. The Israeli solution is controlled violence at the molecular level. The process is called reverse osmosis. Imagine trying to push a golf ball through a solid concrete wall. Impossible, right? Unless you have enough force. Inside these white pipes, the water is pressurized to 70 atmospheres. To put that in perspective, picture a 60-ton tank balanced on the tip of your index finger. That's the pressure happening inside these pipes right now. The membrane is an alien-like polymer, with pores so tiny we need electron microscopes to see them. It acts like a ruthless bouncer. The water molecule, being super small, gets let through. The salt ion, just a bit larger, gets blocked at the door. But here's the fatal flaw that stopped the world from copying Israel. Generating that tank-on-your-finger pressure cost billions in electricity. Historically, desalinating water was like burning money to put out a fire. Then the engineers introduced a technology that seems to defy thermodynamics. They call it the energy recovery device. The concept is brilliantly simple and brutally effective. The rejected salt water from the membrane is still under that monstrous 70 atmosphere pressure. Instead of wasting that energy, the system captures it. Like a judo master using the opponent's strength, the machine takes the pressure from the wastewater and transfers it to the incoming fresh seawater. The result is an almost perpetual cycle of efficiency. They hacked the power bill. Suddenly, the impossible became affordable. The machine was ready to rewrite history. The moment of truth has no fireworks, just data. When the system runs at full capacity, a plant like Sorek doesn't produce a mere trickle of water. It creates an instant artificial river. We're talking around 200 million cubic meters of drinking water per year. Sensors confirm salinity drops to near zero. Bacteria vanish. What was hostile ocean water minutes ago is now some of the purest water on the planet, ready to flow into Tel Aviv's faucets, the Negev's fields and high-tech industries. Engineering won. The desert was overruled. Scarcity became an outdated memory. But in physics, there's no free lunch. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And here the reaction was toxic. We extracted life from the water. But what was left? What's left is a dense, concentrated, deadly substance called brine. For every liter of fresh water that saves an Israeli child, the plant produces about 1.5 liters of this super-saturated chemical sludge. They solved the drought problem, but created a new monster. Now they had millions of tons of liquid poison on their hands. The obvious option seemed like the perfect ecological crime: dump it back into the sea. But if you release that much salt in one spot, you don't just salt the water. You create a dead zone on the Mediterranean seabed, suffocating any fish, plant, or coral unlucky enough to pass by. Israel had just saved its human population, but was about to declare war on the ocean that gave it life. The technological solution had turned into an environmental time bomb, and the clock was ticking. The fix for the poison was dispersion. Instead of choking the ocean in one place, Israel built an underwater vascular system. High-tech diffusers spread the brine in microscopic jets, calculated to dilute instantly in deep currents. The salt returns to its origin without a trace. The ecological crime was averted, but saving the ocean was just set up for the real miracle. The final act of geographical rebellion was about to begin. Throughout human history, gravity has dictated one simple rule: water flows downhill from mountains to the sea. Israel looked at that law of physics and said, not anymore. They launched the Reverse River Project, a network of steel pipes wide enough to swallow a car, equipped with pumps that defy gravity. They took Mediterranean water, purified it at places like Sorek, and started pumping it uphill. The Sea of Galilee, the biblical lake where Jesus is said to have walked on water, was dying. Today it's being artificially resurrected, not by divine rain but by human intervention. The water filling this historic lake today started its journey as saltwater in the ocean just 48 hours ago. Right now, the nation has cut its dependence on the heavens. They've severed the umbilical cord to nature. If it rains, great. If it doesn't, the lake fills anyway. The apocalypse was cancelled by engineering decree. With water secured in the north, the southern desert stopped being a threat and became an opportunity. What you see here is industrial genesis. Where there were once only scorpions and dust, now stand some of the planet's most productive farms. But human ambition went further. They didn't just bring plants to the desert, they brought fish. Yes, fish in the middle of the dunes. They tapped underground brackish aquifers, useless for drinking but perfect for warm water fish farming. The water dirtied by the fish, now rich in organic nitrogen, irrigates date palms. The desert wastes nothing. It's a closed-loop life cycle built from absolute zero. But there was one last bizarre problem. The technology worked too well. The water coming out of reverse osmosis membranes is so pure it's actually dangerous. It's pure H2O. No minerals, no taste, no soul. Drink only that, and your body collapses from lack of magnesium. Pipe it through metal, and it corrodes everything searching for ions. The final irony: after spending billions to clean the water, they have to spend millions to dirty it again. The water flows through limestone beds to pick up calcium and flavor. We didn't just copy nature, we chemically improved it to make it compatible with human life. Looking at this fortress of concrete and water, it's impossible not to feel a chill. It's a glorious sight, yes, but also terrifying. We've crossed an invisible line. For 200,000 years, humanity looked to the sky and begged for water. Now we look at a control panel and decide our rivers' levels. We've taken the reins of the planet, but when you become the master of rain, you become the master of everyone's fate around you. Israel now holds something more valuable than oil, more lethal than missiles. They have the on-off switch for their neighbors' thirst. Water stopped being a resource. It became the ultimate weapon. And the chess game for Middle East control just changed forever. Historically, water has fueled wars in this land. Today, paradoxically, it's the only thing keeping the peace. With overflowing reservoirs, Israel flipped the power dynamic. They didn't just secure their own survival. They became the lifeline for their neighbors. The recent deal is simple and brutally effective. Israel pumps millions of cubic meters of desalinated water to Jordan. In exchange, Jordan builds massive solar fields to send electricity to Israel. Water for energy. Engineering created a physical interdependence no politician can undo. It's hydrodiplomacy. When you depend on your neighbor to not die of thirst, Starting a war gets way too expensive. Remember the apocalyptic scenario we started with? Collapse, thirst, the end, cancelled. The geographical catastrophe was nullified by a strategic decision to invest in concrete and tech. The tap that should have run dry is flowing. They bought their freedom from nature. But as we stare at this technological miracle in the desert, an uncomfortable question echoes across the rest of the planet. Why do nations with giant rivers, tropical rains, and endless resources still live in fear of empty taps? How can Brazil or California face water crises while a country made of sand exports water? Israel's lesson is a slap in the face to global fatalism. They proved scarcity isn't divine punishment. Scarcity is a management failure. It's a choice. What we've seen here isn't just about water. It's about the future of our species. In the next 50 years, the climate will turn hostile. Nature will try to evict us. We can keep praying for rain, or we can build the arks that'll keep us afloat. The technology to save us already exists. The plants are designed. The concrete is ready. The only question left is whether we'll have the courage to build our own defenses before time runs out. Because the desert doesn't wait. And engineering is the only barrier left between civilization and chaos. In the end, there are no geographical miracles. What happened here wasn't divine luck. It was the result of a brutal but necessary equation. Extreme pressure plus applied intelligence equals survival. Israel proved technology is the real barrier between civilization and barbarism. We can beat nature. We can rewrite geography. But the price of that victory is eternal vigilance. The machine can never stop. Now, I hand the controls to Central Command. You, looking at the global drought map and the speed of our response, do you believe technology will save us in time, or are we just delaying an inevitable collapse? I want to read your theory in the comments. If this dossier brought you strategic clarity, hit subscribe. Here, we don't ignore the warnings of the future. We prepare for them. Water was tamed in the desert, but drought is just one of the 4 vectors of collapse. While Israel battles the sea, China is waging war on the Earth's crust itself. They're rerouting entire rivers and drilling through mountains to prepare for something far worse than lack of rain. If you thought Israel's scale was impressive, you're not ready for what Chinese engineering is doing to avert the end. The full dossier is in this video here. I'm Sentinel. This is Terraform. Eyes open.